21 next on August 21st. And now we have a deadline in place for the homeless encampment known as Tent City to move on. Got a couple different people to talk to you about this. We have Maxine Rose, who was our reporter on this today. Alexa Southard, who's our web expert here at CBS 21, who's actually gone to that encampment a number of times. We'll get to her in a moment. But let's start with Maxine. So Maxine, we've been talking about this for a while. This is that I-83 expansion that PennDOT needs to do. They need to clear this area because of that issue. We all know that. But when is it going to happen has been the question. It's kind of been left up in the air. And now we have an actual answer to that. What did we learn today?
Today we have learned that from the sign you're looking at right there, the official deadline is going to be September 22nd for the remaining people living here at the Tent City location by PennDOT.
Okay, so was that a surprise to the people there? How are they reacting?
Well, I don't know if it's so much of a surprise, Joel D, just given the fact that there have been so many deadline dates, that they have heard about. They kind of told us rumors about. This is the first time, though, that we are seeing this from PennDOT. They're just very mixed about it. People don't necessarily believe it just because of all of those past deadlines that they've heard about. And some people also just don't really feel like it holds a lot of weight. And that kind of takes us to our next part of this is kind of the enforcement. We're still waiting to find out what really will happen in terms of enforcement.
Right. So I'll talk to Alexa more about the people's point of view. Let's get to the specifics of what we know and what we are still asking. If that's a real deadline, who's going to enforce it?
That is the question. We have asked PennDOT that very question today, and we have not yet received an answer on that. But we do know that Harrisburg has recently stated that it will no longer be helping with, the enforcement of all of this. So it won't be Harrisburg police, that's for sure, on September 22nd.
Okay, so we'll look into this a little bit more. Anything else you want to add before I bring in Alexa on this?
Sure. So we also found out today from PennDOT that, the sign states on it that there will be heavy equipment and construction crews coming in for this project that they're working on. We heard from PennDOT today saying specifically it's for that I-83 expansion project we told you all about multiple times, but that the first day of the construction will be September 23rd. So that's the very next day after this new deadline. So again, we don't know what will happen if someone does choose to stay despite PennDOT, quote unquote, encouraging people to leave by that date. But, we do know, again, those heavy equipment and crews will be coming in the very next day.
Okay. All right. We'll look forward to your report at 5 and 6. Thanks a lot, Maxine Rose. Let's bring in Alexa right now. Okay. You've been to this encampment a few times, got to know some of the people there.
Yeah.
The reaction to the deadline first. Let's get more into that.
I've seen and talked to a lot of different people. On one side of the spectrum, you have people who are saying, I don't want to get arrested, so I will leave. And they have left. There's a lot of people who have gone to different places that have been offered, namely the Miracle community.
What percentage so far? Who on your numbers that are unofficial, but what you've seen in general?
So I'd say we started with about 75 people there. I think at their full capacity at when the most people lived at Tent City, there was 75 people there. There's about 30 people left. So good chunk, significant chunk of people. And, they're sad to see who they call their family members go. They feel like their community that they've kind of cultivated there has been broken up. And I don't know if they necessarily blame anyone for that because, obviously they support each other's decisions to go to wherever they want to go. But this is a group. A lot of them went from the Mulberry Street encampment to now this encampment by the PennDOT building. So a big chunk of them have relocated just from what I've heard, mostly from them, it's fear of being arrested.
Okay, so they will go when necessary, you think. Have any of them talked about trying to stick it out and what their strategy is for that?
Yeah, I'll cue up a video here. This is John, who I've spoken to quite a few times throughout my journeys at Tent City. He is one that is very adamant on staying until the bitter end. He says, I will stay until a warrant is served to me. And when that day comes and they do due process, what he calls due process of evicting them, he will leave. Now, there is a lot of questions about the process and the enforcement and who will be enforcing it. But the majority of the people that I've spoken to, they're not trying to put up any type of fight. So even John, who's speaking here in this video, he's very adamant on, we're not going to riot. We're not going to, there's not going to be a shootout. There's not going to be anything crazy. But they want to stay because, to them, this is their home that they've been in for years,
Right. They knew that this day was coming. I mean,
yes.
The PennDOT expansion has been going on for a long time. They are right in the thick of it. They know where their location is. So they knew this was always happening. Was it kind of a bit of denial, though, because this kept getting pushed back further and further? So why not just stay as long as we can?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, even with the deadlines now that we're seeing. So like first, when I started going to Tent City, when we initially had, the deadline approaching, first we heard August 15th. Then the next time I go down there, I hear the end of the month. And then the next time, today that we went, we saw the sign that says September 22nd. So they don't have a lot of, faith in any deadline right now. They're kind of the opinion of like, oh yeah, we'll see. It's kind of like if you keep pushing it back, they're not gonna, they're not gonna believe really what they're hearing. But I think the sign being, installed into the ground has made it a little more real.
Okay. We know that some have moved to the new location.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who have not, why are they reluctant?
I've heard a couple different reasons. I think majority of them there's a lot of people down there that just want to be off the grid. And to go to this lot that you're seeing on your screen here, this is the Miracle community that Miracle for sure, is operating off of Cameron Street. You have to sign up on a paper to be there. You have to, give your name. There's some concerns between these people about surveillance. Yes. And I think the security cameras are a big deal to them. Right now they have the freedom. I spoke to one woman who definitely said that the biggest thing that is the struggle for these people is rules. They've lived so long without really going by society's rules, and this lot has rules. I think I have spoken to a few people who have relocated, and they do like it. They've told me it's better than Tent City. They feel like
here's a good point. I think this is a great point that we've stumbled across here. I've covered homeless situations in the past. You've been in this recently. Mm-hmm. You can't just say homeless people are like this. Homeless people want that. It's too big of a group. They have all different reasons for wanting to be there or be off the grid. Some want homes. They just can't find the right ones. Some have no stability. Some aren't able to work to establish some line of consistency so they can have an address and then have a job. Others are just, happy to be around other people like them. Some, like you say, it's the freedom aspect, being away from rules. So it's hard to come up with an answer that solves all of those issues and that is something appeasing to all of them. It's not going to work that way. So
it's
my last question is this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's not a one size fits all solution. There's a lot of people's reasons for even coming to an encampment like this in the first place. Some of them are just of the opinion they don't like people. They don't want to live in a traditional, house. A big appeal to where they're at right now for them, from their perspective, is the trees. They're in nature. Not only does that protect them from elements, but there's a certain appeal to that versus what we've seen across in the other place. It's more of a flat lot. That's not for everybody, but
for
there
some
are
for some, homelessness is transitional. It's until they can find a traditional home situation again because of whatever reasons, down their luck, health, mental instability. They have reasons that they're right now homeless, but they're looking forward to being in a home again. Others, this is what they want. So, you can't solve that by saying, here, go live somewhere else. Like, they don't want to live there. They like this. You may not know this answer, but my last question for you is this. So the ones that don't want to be in a formalized atmosphere, even if it is this Miracle for Sure, and they like this, but they know this doesn't exist any longer, you think there'll be some workarounds? Like they'll find some new locations that are not Miracle for Sure, not here, but just somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a question that I have. And it's especially after seeing the signs today. I know we were talking a little bit earlier in our meeting about it. The sign says that PennDOT put up the sign for enough time to work with the Homeless Coalition to come up with a safer location. So I'm wondering, is that location the Miracle for Sure lot? I don't know. The Miracle community only has so much space, not enough space for all of these people at Tent City. So, oh, excuse me, the lights went off. You know how it is with these motion censored lights in the conference room. But what I was saying was, it's essentially, I think that if there was another lot similar to, what they're in now, down by the PennDOT encampment, like the, nature, etc., they may be more inclined and interested in somewhere like that.
Well, let's also put this in perspective. We've covered other cities. Seems like Harrisburg's being very patient with these folks. There's some other cities, they're saying, that's it, you're trespassing, you're out, and they end up under arrest. They end up in different scenarios. This has been a very methodical, slow approach, trying to give them options, giving them time to adjust, telling them what's happening. So I think we want to put that in perspective, because there's going to be a point where time's up, you got to go, and those images might not be so pleasant. But let's remember, there's been a lot of time to try to solve this before it gets to that. Yeah,
I think from their perspective, and like I said, I haven't had the opportunity I've been mainly focusing on the perspective of these people in the encampment. So, there's all angles to this story. However, I think the confusion mostly stems from that they were given the alternative to the new lot, the Miracle community, within the past month or so, whereas this has been in the works for years. So yes, they've known about it for years, but the alternative has only been a reality for so long. So I think when I was down there earlier today, there were people there helping sign people up, or I know that the people with Miracle for Sure have been bussing people over and stuff like that in the past. So I know that they've definitely been supportive. I know that the people that have moved there are happy, over there. It's just getting those last few to just really, I think you really see the ones that are going to hold on, they're going to hold on. They're going to, and that's, it may be
and something else. I think you mentioned it, but it could be an interesting strategy. We know timelines get pushed back as this has happened. If the timeline gets pushed back too far here, we're going to be into the winter, and construction season kind of ends. So they could get lucky that this gets pushed back so far that we hit winter, construction season ends, and then they get to stay there through the winter into the spring, and who knows? Maybe that's part of it.
We do have a comment here. Let me pull it up. This is from somebody on YouTube. That's exactly what happened from Mulberry Street to PennDOT. So a lot of people in this area, they know the relocate, and we've covered it here. Obviously, I mean, I've gone under the Mulberry Street Bridge, not to the extent that I've been at Tent City. But people here know that, this type of things, they do take time. But I would agree with the sentiment that the city's been pretty patient. So.
Right. We've seen some real crackdowns in other places. That's, like you said, it's hard to to move everybody when some really don't have the incentive to want to. And that solution we keep trying to find for everybody. Hey, let's get everyone at home and get everybody someplace safe and away from, the outside influences and being out with nature. That's what they want. So you can't solve that for everybody. And that's where these last few will have their challenges, trying to find another place instead of the ones that are offered. So we'll see what happens. But it's been great seeing your coverage on this. And we know the story's not over, Alexis. So thanks.
Absolutely. There's something very long form that we're working on. So we're kind of excited to be able to kind of go take the viewer inside Tent City. So thanks for having me.
Okay, excellent. All right, thanks. Like she said, there'll be more to come on this in the future. And Maxine Rose has her news story on this coming up at 5 and 6 o'clock today. So thanks for watching 21 Next, a chance to dig into these stories in a more conversational way. We appreciate that. And thanks to our reporters on this as well. We'll see you next time.